Thanks for joining us today on Behind the Business. Our guest today is Michael Pink, and he's the founder of Map Real Estate. It's a Chicago-based firm specializing in commercial tenant representation for small to mid-sized businesses and nonprofits. Since 1985, he has completed over 1,100 transactions helping clients navigate office leasing, renewals, and purchases while exclusively representing their interests to avoid conflict with landlords. A central part of his business is the Investing in Communities initiative, which directs a portion of MAP's commissions to client selected charities totaling over $725,000 donated to date. And that's amazing. Michael, thanks for being here with
Thank you.
us.
My pleasure, Robere.
Thank you. So let's just start here. Map Real Estate is reportedly the first commercial tenant rep brokerage in the world to become certified B Corp. Now, what motivated you to pursue this certification?
1995, my company was 9 years old, and I said to my business partner, who is my lovely wife still, let's do something differently. Let us see if we can get the word to spread about our company, not by buying ads, but by giving money to charity. Sharon was willing to go along with it, and so began what we called Investing in Communities. It was a program of Map Real Estate. It was not yet a nonprofit, and we simply realized that I needed to prime the pump. If I'm going to expect others to give away what is theirs, I better be giving away some of my own first. So we simply arrived at a program. We called it Investing in Communities. It consisted of our giving to a client in writing a pledge such that we would give 10% of our gross commission to a charity of their choice.
Amazing.
So we began to do that, and I called up a staff attorney. It was then called the Illinois Department of Banks and Real Estate, as I recall. 2009 probably was the phone call. And I was told that if I want to continue being a licensed real estate broker, I better not give any part of my commission to a charity chosen by a client. And I said, what?
Why?
Yeah, because the charity would be a party which was non-licensed and not a party to the real estate transaction from which the commission was paid.
Okay.
It's a little bit circuitous, but the long shot is that in about 40 states, this was back in 2009-10, I came across an organization called Arello, Arrelo, I believe. It is the Association of Real Estate License Act Professionals around the country. Arello maintained a chart that showed that 10 states were being sued then by the Department of Justice, presumably for restraint of trade, for prohibiting their real estate licensees from giving any part of a commission, even to their own client, from whose transaction the commission was earned. So the long and the short of it is that in Illinois, it was License Act compliant. It still is License Act compliant for a licensee to give part of their commission to the client from whose transaction the commission was earned, not to anybody else.
Okay.
So that we could give the money directly to our client if we wanted to, but there would be no strings attached, or it would
Okay.
violate the License Act. So we could not say to the client, please take this $3,000 from us, from our commission, which, by the way, you didn't pay us because your landlord paid us.
Right.
They could keep our money if they wanted to. There was nothing we could do about that. Twice out of 75 times or so that we did this with a for-profit client, the client kept the money. Interestingly, once one of those clients that kept the 10% was a consultant to nonprofits.
A little
Strange,
bit of irony there. Yeah.
a little bit. So we began to give this letter to clients, and when our client was itself a nonprofit, we could write the check to that nonprofit. Otherwise, we would give the money to the client and hope that they would give it to a nonprofit. We realized that we could improve the situation by forming a nonprofit to which would be given the 10% in the name of our
Uh,
client. And then if the client did not say to us, here's the nonprofit I want the money to go to, then investing in communities as a nonprofit, an Illinois, a national 501c3, the money would be retained by IIC. At least it would have gone to a nonprofit. Every time that we represented a nonprofit, we were able to write the check directly to our client. When we represented a for-profit, for example, we represented Ray Kolak and his law firm. They needed, for about 4,000 feet, they needed to either move or renew their 10-year lease, which was nearing expiration. Ray elected to choose the Kennebec Estuary Land Trust in Maine to receive a little bit less than $7,000 from our nonprofit, which represented, at that point in time, I think we were up to 15% of our commission. We've scaled it back to 10% of the commission since. And that's how an office lease in Chicago funded a land conservation charity in the state of Maine.
wow.
The two are connected. So since then, we have created the nonprofit. We have revised the name slightly. Now it is IIC Gives.
Okay.
It's a little bit more self-explanatory what we're doing than investing in communities, which everyone used to think was some type of affordable housing initiative, and it never was that. Certainly, we would support that cause, but we support women and families, health and wellness, arts and culture, education, environment, and social justice. And if, when you let your locks down, you are unable to think of a charity that fits in one of those areas, it doesn't matter. As long as the organization you would like to benefit is doing what we believe is good work, we will be very happy to process the transaction and get the money to them. Once we had formed the nonprofit, we realized that it could be any real estate transaction in any state of the United States, using any real estate broker, benefiting any charity that the client was interested in. Now we're really
Okay.
talking about something that has potential for legs.
Right.
So the typical IIC math involving, let's say we're talking about a residential purchase or sale, but the model works perfectly whether it is a residential or commercial purchase or sale. It also works with commercial leases. Our model is not a way for brokers to be charitable. I repeat, no broker involved with investing in communities, other than maybe me, is being charitable. What they are doing is pursuing business in a time-honored way, which is to pay a referral fee in full compliance with their state's license act. So the model works with any transaction for which brokers want to compete. It could be the sale of a tropical island. It could be a penthouse on Park Avenue. It could be a warehouse lease in Tuscaloosa. It could be any real estate brokerage opportunity for which brokers want to compete for a charity of the buyer or the seller's choice or the commercial tenant. I believe it does not occur at all at the expense of that commercial tenant or buyer or seller for a simple reason. First, you as a broker say to me as a broker, sure, I'd love the referral. Will you please put the prospect in touch with me? And if they like what I say, then we'll do business together and I'll be happy to pay you a market referral fee if the transaction closes.
Okay.
First, you agree to the referral, then you agree either to pay or not pay the commission that the seller wants. If it's a buyer, there's typically no commission, even still. If it's a commercial tenant, there's typically no commission that they pay still. I have only practiced in Chicago, but I think real estate brokerage works this way around the country. I do not think commercial tenants pay commissions to their brokers anywhere in the United States.
Okay. All right. So now this gives them, go ahead. Just go ahead.
Please, you go.
Well, I was going to say, so I guess because I'm trying to follow you because this is a new concept to me as well. The beauty of it is you guys, you brokers, you guys work together. There's a whole community ecosystem amongst y'all. And at times you will refer to a different broker who might have the different or better skill set to deal with that particular client or situation. And in doing so, there's somewhat of a standard operating procedure where a commission would be granted for, or a portion of the commission would be granted for the referral. And now we can take and channel that referral instead of simply going to a different brokerage. We can take that and channel it to a nonprofit and, in essence, invest in the community.
Precisely correct.
Okay,
May I qualify a couple of things that you said though? But the thrust of what
please.
you just stated is absolutely correct, and it is the vision that we have.
Okay,
In the United States, it is not the case that every real estate brokerage opportunity involves the payment of a referral fee.
sure.
However, it is possible that every brokerage opportunity could involve the payment of a referral fee, a market referral fee, and there would still be a long line of highly qualified, capable professionals, seasoned professionals, eager to get the business in return for paying a market referral fee. So we do not care who the brokers are that handle the projects, other than that we want there to be goodness of fit between the brokers' talents, resources, and the needs of the consumer. The
Yeah,
objective here primarily is not to make charity happen, but to make real estate brokerage as effective for the principles that they're representing as can be, or they should stop being real estate brokers. If at the same time we can ensure that there is goodness of fit between what the professional knows how to do and what you need them to do, and we can give you a way to support what you care about, that's what I am trying to do.
it's win-win, right? Yeah. Okay, I get it. So let's move on a little bit. So
Please.
through your investing in communities, that program, which you've turned into over $700,000 in donations. How do you still balance the philanthropic mission with the competitive nature of Chicago commercial real estate?
Chicago commercial real estate is caused by an overabundance of tenant reps
Hmm.
and an overabundance of product, especially now that COVID has come and gone and not really gone. There's a huge overhang of product in the market, tons and tons of surplus space, so much so that they're growing arugula in some of it. Vision was to see if we could differentiate ourselves in a terribly crowded field by doing good. We call it doing business, doing good.
I like it.
And if we can cause that to become the way business is done, it'll never go out of fashion because business will always occur. High margin, low margin, doesn't matter. Business will always occur. Now there is a way to take a fraction of the economics. I won't even call it a fraction of the economics from the real estate transactions and use them in a way that benefits society.
Yeah. This particular model that you're talking about to reroute a portion of the revenue generated in a real estate transaction to benefit nonprofits. I mean, it's genius. Not only is it genius, but
Right.
it's novel. And I can see it as catching on and being that win-win situation for all of those involved in this industry. I really can.
Thank you for those words. I
Yeah.
believe it to be the case that, if I can use this expression, the powers that be in real estate would much prefer that I dry up and blow away. But everybody that the powers that be and everybody that any of us small guys like myself want to do business with, all of them care about their kids, care about their spouse, care about braces, care about club foot, care about all of the ills of the world. And let it be the case that those real estate professionals that make good coin do business this way, or they get into a different line. I don't have any
Right.
problem with that. Real estate brokerage is a profoundly commodity profession.
And by that
I
you mean,
I mean that I have access to CoStar because I pay nearly $1,000 a month for the honor, and that gives me access to all commercial spaces in the United States. My competitor, who doesn't know how to spell the word philanthropy, also has access to CoStar and all the information that I have access to.
right,
You can choose to do business with either one of us.
right.
This is how I do business because I decided I wanted to be in business like this. It feels good.
Mhm. Right, right.
If I had the 700 grand that we've given away, it would have grown into double or quadruple that amount. I would like to think that by embracing the movement, so to speak, of certified B, which I came to very late, I discovered them years after I was doing what I was doing already. But it is something that I can become a part of, and I have. And it is a community that is attempting to move the thinking of people who control businesses in a different direction. I would like to be working at moving in a different direction the people who are the customers of the world, because there are a hell of a lot more customers and prospects than there are real estate professionals. There are something like 3,000 between the US and Canada I came across B Lab for the first time in 2010 when, as I recall, that was the year I attended the Social Enterprise Alliance Summit in Chicago. Otherwise, I might never have met B Lab. And had I not attended that convention, I would not have learned of a whole world of people who think like I do.
Right. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool.
Thank
So
you.
let's jump back into this just a little bit. So with nearly 40 years in the industry, and we're talking about tenants now, what is the most mistake that most tenants make when they try to renegotiate or renew their own lease?
Great question. Timing. Civilians, if I can refer to the people that I represent that way, civilians don't know how long it takes to do this properly. Properly doesn't mean being a shithead. It does not mean being objectionable. You can be perfectly polite and deliver the goods to your client. You can do that, especially if you have enough time. It's very difficult to do it if you don't have enough time.
Okay.
So, the biggest problem that tenants make typically is not leaving enough time. How do you know what is enough time? It's the amount of time that your landlord believes you require to move to a different space. There's no
Yeah. Say that one more time.
time is the amount of time your landlord thinks it will take you to move someplace else. So if you have a couple months left on your lease, that's cutting it a little short. If you have a couple of weeks left on your lease, it's ridiculous. You have put yourself in the position of having zero negotiating leverage. I am not a magician, Robert. All I do is work the system dynamics to the advantage of my client instead of the advantage of the landlord.
Okay. Would it be fair to say then that 6 months?
6 months is way better than three, but the best way to put this is to say that, particularly in the context of renewal, the time is yours to do with as you choose. And there is some proportionality between the lead time based on size of space. So longer lead time, bigger space, smaller space, shorter lead time. Not
Sure.
always, but generally speaking, that's the case. If you're a company in a building in downtown Chicago and you're wondering, what am I going to do about my next lease when you have 6 months left on it? The first question I would ask is there something about your business that caused you to wait until now to move this question to the front burner?
Okay.
If so, that's legitimate because, again, I am a systems mechanic. I have to ascertain what are the different parts of the system that I'm dealing with. And that's why it's always unique. So some tenant may be very happy negotiating a lease a couple of years before the lease is up. Somebody else might say, how am I going to know if the landlord is sharpening their pencil enough? Well, one way to do that is to take it to market, solicit proposals from other landlords. Alternative that is something you would not act on is not to have an alternative. We're not talking about stalking horses for negotiating purposes. We're talking about actionable alternatives that comprise your working shortlist. And if you are in a building and you really would like to renew because the location is perfect, the layout is perfect, the finish is perfect, there's no wear and tear, nothing, you can save huge amounts of money on a transaction like that. Your landlord is not dealing with a vacancy period. Your landlord is not dealing with a construction period during which it's not collecting rent. Your landlord is not dealing with a vacancy period that might be 3 months, it might be 33 months. Your landlord is not dealing with credit that they're not already very familiar with and presumably comfortable with.
Right.
So if the circumstances for a renewal in place mean that you are compromising nothing about your ideal agenda, that will be the best economics you can achieve anywhere in the marketplace, because every other landlord is dealing with at least some of those things that your landlord is not dealing with. The trouble with renewal is that most landlords are not going to sharpen their pencil until there is some parity between the size of the deal and the amount of lead time left. So what you're then faced with having to do is going to market and saying to other buildings, this is what I've got, 55 private offices, blah, blah, blah. You can get a proposal from them, maybe that contemplates a commencement when your lease actually does expire, or you can get a proposal from them that contemplates a commencement that's a lot sooner. You are free to say to your building owner, I've got alternatives. They don't know what you've got. If you like the idea of learning how to do something that's relatively complex and that exposes you to significant risk, then by all means, what you should do is try to negotiate your own deal. But if you like the idea of paying nothing for the professional service, assuming that your broker knows how to thread a needle,
Yeah.
and,
Working
and
rate
I
guy.
think it's safe to say that not all do, you're in a circumstance that's hard to beat. There's no cost, there's experience.
Right.
Uh,
Good points. Let's keep it moving though. So I want to ask you another question about the industry and the Chicago market. So in post COVID now, the office has been redefined. We work from
yes.
home, everybody knows that. So, how are your Chicago clients currently balancing the need for physical space with the hybrid work models? And what are you seeing in terms of downsizing versus right sizing?
It certainly is on everyone's mind. I believe that there's a great deal of flux that remains in the market because it remains in people's minds. Everyone, it seems now, would like to enter into a relatively short term lease. Co working has really moved into a status that it did not enjoy prior to the pandemic. Co working is now a normal sort of work environment. And I don't think it's fair to say that before it was not. So I have a number of clients now whose deals are looking at higher caliber buildings that, yes, they cost more per square foot, but they have a range of amenities offerings that are off the charts. And with those amenities, it's possible for an organization to move into a space, let's say it's 5,000 feet, instead of a space that maybe is 5,500 feet, because the tenant will rely on the amenities floor for conference room uses. Large conference room, small conference room, typically in the arms race that has existed now for well over 10 years, long predating COVID. There has been an arms race among building owners for amenities. You can now more easily think of moving into a fancier building and occupying somewhat smaller square footage for your company and negotiate a number of free uses, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one of the effects that is going on. The other is that in Chicago, at least, it remains the case that the largest concentration of opportunity is in the downtown area. There are far more opportunities for any kind of tenant, whether it's somebody looking for C space or somebody looking for A space, than in any of the submarkets.
Okay.
At the same time, there has been a proliferation of elegant offerings in what I would describe as neighborhood venues. It occupies space in a building that has itself fancy amenities. Maybe that is better for the head of the company. Maybe the decision should be made on the basis of who it is that you work with in terms of business collaboration, partners, where are your clients. For the most part, that still remains downtown.
Okay.
So, building in flexibility is really the better way to describe this because that describes potentially square footage, it describes length of lease. Building in flexibility is what everybody is looking for, I think.
Okay. Okay. Now, for that client that is looking for an office space, what are the top three hidden costs in a commercial lease that they're probably not prepared for?
One of them is so painfully obvious that it almost shouldn't be mentioned, but I will. Yes, right,
Right.
right. So there's another 18, 22, 26, 28 bucks a foot in tax and operating in addition to that.
Yeah, it's brutal. It is brutal.
But you need to be outlook not to come across that issue long before you sign the lease. If you look at escalation clauses in Chicago, a favorable escalation clause is 2% or 25 cents per foot per year, let's say. And I'm not saying that they're equivalent, but depending upon how the lease is structured, those are typically the most favorable rates you're going to end up with. Not only is that not high, it's not variable, it's fixed for the term of the lease. The only variable component, therefore, is the tax and operating. And if you say that in 1 year the taxes may go up, but operating will go down, another year it would be the opposite. Generally speaking, the tax and operating is not going to go up that much over the term of the lease, except as a result of the building moving from being empty to being full. You can lose a lot of dough moving into an empty net building, and then they lease up and the taxes go up, not because the city needs money, but simply because the building has gone from being vacant to being full or mostly full. The tax can go up enormously. That is a issue that can catch some people by surprise, and there are ways to negotiate around that.
So are you saying that the higher,
To mostly full, the tax assessor will charge the building more tax per square foot.
when it is, when the occupancy is higher?
Yes,
Okay,
precisely.
because it's generating more revenue
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
therefore the tax man wants a little piece of it.
Or a big piece, yes.
Yeah,
Right.
okay. All
And
right.
so you move into a building, and if you gross up variable expenses, which is a legitimate bookkeeping approach at all office buildings to use grossing up, you change the yearly value only of the variables that change based on occupancy. So, for
Yes,
example, the elevator contract, you got to pay for whether the building is 10% or 100% occupied.
right.
Not the case with janitorial. Not the case probably with HVAC. And there are some other expenses. So, at any rate,
Yeah,
so hidden costs, you've got the rental rate that's set in the lease.
right.
You have the escalation. If it is a percentage escalation or a fixed dollar amount per square foot, fixed in the lease. If it's an
Right,
open-ended CPI, then you're dealing with the vagaries of inflation. Now you have a fixed escalation to the base rental rate of 2%, 3% maybe. You have the variable tax and operating. Those are the only sources of cost.
okay,
You should know before you sign the lease, does the building pay for janitorial? Does the building pay for HVAC? Because they don't all.
right,
But
right.
once you're a tenant in the building, things really get locked down pretty well. That's why leases exist, to protect the interest of the parties going
Of all the
forward.
parties involved. Right. Okay. It's raised a bunch of questions, but keep it moving here. I want to move forward and talk about tech and AI solutions because I'd still like to get your take on how you guys are using AI and tech in your business. So I have a question for you. So in an
Please.
industry that's often seen as old school, how is map real estate using AI or data analytics to provide more objective financial comparisons between lease alternatives for your clients?
Well, the short answer is we don't. We do not use AI to become more analytically sophisticated.
Okay.
What we do instead is identify all of the issues that might be of interest to this client or that client, and we track them. We run numbers for every deal we do. Even 1,000-foot leases deserve to have some financial analysis applied to them. Why not?
It should be part of your service, right?
It is, and has been ever since and before we began subscribing to CoStar. A lease analyzing area in its website, which is quite sophisticated. It allows me to render analyses in present value dollars, in total dollars. I can discount at any rate I want. I can vary line items by year. I think you can do it by month, but that's typically not needed. I can model the analysis from the building owner's perspective, from the tenant's perspective. That type of analysis is what should be used every single time somebody negotiates an office lease. Yeah, but I'm trying to draw a distinction between what ChatGPT can do for you, or Perplexity, or whatever LLM it is that you want to deal with, and doing what I've done for a living for 40 years. The large language models have not changed what I do for a living at all.
Mhm.
And it may be because I'm too stupid to know how they might. It may be because now that I'm 70, now that I have Parkinson's, I'm not going to be doing this for the next 40 years. I'll do it for another two, three, four, five, maybe. I have used
Mhm.
AI in other places in my life, but that has to do with writing and is pretty unrelated to what we're talking about.
Right. AI is new, generally speaking. Okay, it's new. But I think we'll all agree that it's not only the present, but it is the future. Most business owners and or the general public refer to AI as chat. But at the end of the day, it's those businesses who recognize and identify the AI driven workflows and the AI models that are specific to their needs that I think would probably get the greatest benefit from AI. And would you agree with that statement or no?
I would agree that it is extremely likely that AI could be used in almost any business application for the greater benefit of the business. The trouble is that it requires somebody like yourself who knows how to make the translation between the tools that are available and the uses that maybe would be the applications,
Exactly, exactly. And I think that's true of most business owners these days is that they're aware of AI, but they just don't know how to implement it. They don't know how to take
Yeah.
real advantage of it. And it seems like it's simply something else that they're going to spend money on that they really don't even care to know about. They know that they need it, they just don't care to learn about it because they're already trying to run their company.
Yeah.
Okay, so lastly, give us a look with your decades of experience in the Chicago market specifically. Give us a look 5 or 10 years down the road. What do you think the commercial real estate market landscape will look like in Chicago in that time?
Well, so information moving from one place to another, I think, makes it possible to project with some safety that people will continue to work for home and that type of work environment will mature, whatever that means exactly, I don't know. But except by Zoom or telephone, you can't really move people. And Zoom has made great strides, I think, as a result of the pandemic. But if you want to be in the presence of people, if there's something about that that's good for you, training, mentoring, sales, then I think you're probably going to want to still be in a concentrated area of businesses, otherwise referred to as downtown areas, whether it's in Oak Brook or in Chicago. You're probably not going to want to be in a wheat field in Wheaton if you need to interact with people. So I think what will happen is that prices will continue to go up. Construction has gone through the roof and has not come back again as a result of COVID. Nuts. A relatively vanilla office space now should be budgeted at over $100 a foot.
Wow.
I'm not talking about some paneling. So 5 or 10 years from now, space will be more expensive. I believe that there will continue to be interesting developments in neighborhood sort of venues, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. That's about it. I don't think there will be other enormous changes in that period of time.
Okay. I want to ask one more follow-up, and I think this might benefit those who are starting out. Because the folks, this is for the newbie. What are two of the biggest challenges that you face as the owner of Map Real
You
Estate?
can look me up and see that I've got 48 Google reviews. I think they're all 5 star. And maybe that'll mean something to you, maybe it won't. The challenge is getting the assignment, not doing the assignment.
Getting the assignment, getting your word out there, because basically, if they don't know you, they won't work with you, right?
Well, if they don't know me, they don't know that I'm honest. They don't know that maybe some people think I'm smart. I proudly got another deal. A client of mine that I now have was unimpressed with what they were getting from JLL, the second biggest real estate company in the world.
Okay.
So at some point in time, it gets down to the guy or the girl that I'm working with doing for me what I think I should be getting.
Sure.
And how to convince someone of that, that they will feel that way in the future, that they have been well served, it remains the challenge.
And so, for those listening, you
I
spend a
have
lot of time
persist.
networking.
Sure, you do. This networking is the business to be in, but network with your clients. Try to do something for clients that they would like done for them, like introduce them to business opportunities, introduce them to collaboration opportunities, who has always felt that there's a limit to what can be done other than showing up for work every day.
I think if everybody knew what you were doing, that itself lends integrity, and it seems like a good way to start a relationship.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I firmly believe that you are correct. There are a jillion reasons to do what I'm doing. Only one of them is because it really makes me feel good.
Right.
It does count. I do believe that a fair amount of business has come through the door because this is how we do business.
Awesome. Okay, that's one.
Not squandering precious resources by having done something and then allowing it to become stale and worthless. If you are prospecting, keep track of what you're doing and keep track of what you're doing for the rest of your life. Someone that you met 40 years ago, if you kept in touch with them, is much more likely to do business with you now than somebody who hasn't heard from you.
Okay, so existing and potential client reach out is what you're saying.
Sure.
Foster those relationships.
Yes.
Yes.
It's all you've got.
Right. Isn't that true?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Well, last word here before I put it to bed, so to speak. Is there anything else that you would like to say?
Robert, there is not. I really appreciate this opportunity. I love what I do. I do feel that it gives me an opportunity to be creative and resourceful, notwithstanding the fact that this is a commodity profession. I will
Right.
maintain that till I die. You can still do it with excellence, and it feels good.
Great. Awesome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank my guest, Michael Pink from MAP Real Estate in Chicago, Illinois. What an interesting way that he approaches the business. And again, just thank you for your time. And I know I've learned a lot, and I know the viewer will have learned a lot today as well. And so we wish you all the best and thank you again for your time.
Thank you very, very much. I hope we speak again.
Thank you.
Stay well.